especially if someone is a practicing Muslim who doesn't really believe in the value of life on earth anyway, and thinks they're going to be greeted in the afterlife by 72 virgins, that actually the death penalty is an easy way out. I don't think prisoners, especially those like Axel Rudakubana, should cost the taxpayer thousands of pounds. It's very easy. You just put them in some sort of oubliette, make sure that they're fed enough to not die, and then just let them fester.
Breaking right now, calls for the death penalty to return in the United Kingdom, specifically as a result of Axel Rudakubana, the Islamist terrorist child killer who took the lives of those 3 young girls at a Taylor Swift dance concert, being investigated for an alleged attack on a prison officer behind bars at Belmarsh, where he tipped boiling water over their head. Now, let me tell you this whole story, and excuse the pun, but it makes my blood boil. This man is going to cost us dearly for decades and decades and decades behind bars unless he's taken out by one of his fellow prisoners. And yet, are we seriously going to step back and allow him to take the life of a good, honest prison guard? So you can imagine this despicable story, which broke on Friday night, has rocked the country and rocked all of our moral consciences over the weekend. With Basil the Great reporting Rupert Lowe has called for a debate on use of the death penalty in extreme circumstances. Indeed, the Axed Reform UK MP posted, "I reiterate my belief that now is the time for a national debate on the use of the death penalty in exceptional circumstances. Prison staff are being put in harm's way because our system fails to properly protect them from violent and extremist prisoners. Serious concerns have been raised with me by staff about their safety. I have written to the Secretary of State asking for urgent action." There was a similar theme after this incident taken up by Robert Jenrick, currently the Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary, but likely to be the next leader of the party. We'll get analysis from Alex Phillips very shortly, but first have a look at what Jenrick had to say.
Since when did the right of a sick criminal to make a cup of tea come before the safety of a prison officer? On Thursday, we're told, the Southport killer Axel Rudakubana attacked a prison officer with boiling water. The officer was hospitalized. My thoughts are with him and his family. This wasn't an isolated case. For weeks, I have warned about the safety of prison officers in some of our highest security prisons. Just a few weeks ago, one of the terrorists behind the Manchester Arena bombing attacked prison officers with a makeshift weapon and boiling oil, which he'd somehow managed to get hold of, despite being in a supposed segregation center in a top security prison. Well, enough is enough. We must never put the rights of criminals and terrorists above the safety of prison officers. Labour's Justice Secretary needs to get a grip, or else I fear it is only a matter of time before a prison officer loses their life.
Well, of course, Alex, because we saw this other attack, didn't we, on a prison officer by one of the Manchester bombing accused just a couple of weeks ago. And I just can't get my head around this, Alex Phillips. So it's like Axel Rudakubana doesn't have to be forced to go and listen to the victim impact statements of the families of young Bibi and the other girls, plus the victims who were not killed. He didn't even have to be in court that day to listen to the victim impact statement, but he is allowed boiling water in his cell to attack a prison guard. Now, we already know, by the way, from Tommy Robinson in conversation with me, that Rudakubana is practicing as a Muslim behind bars at Belmarsh prison. Now he's also attacking prison officers. So surely, Alex Phillips, there needs to be a discussion about whether someone like this should actually in future face the death penalty. I know we can't change the laws retrospectively, but seriously, if we're not going to kill a man like this, have we just lost it?
Look, this to me is a black and white case. I don't believe in the death penalty. I'm sorry. There might be a lot of people who disagree with that. I'm a Christian. Taking life is morally wrong. However monstrous, however ghastly, however evil somebody is, taking a life is wrong. And so I don't back personally the death penalty. That's not to say that my own personal religious view should affect the nation's views. And so if it was put to a referenda, then fine. But what I think is so wrong in our prison system is, you look at prison in El Salvador, right, since Bukele has taken over the governance of that country, and it's not exactly hanging out, playing on PlayStation, going to a little kitchen, making cups of tea, making life inside prison as close to what life is like outside prison as possible. That's mad. Prison is supposed to be a punishment. Now, I don't believe in taking a life, but I do believe a creature like that is not human. I do believe they're a caged animal and should be treated as such. There's actually talk today in the newspapers that he's now going to be just served food through a hatch. Fine. Why wasn't he to begin with? There was a fascinating statement in one of the newspaper reports about this, where some of the prison services have said, well, clearly he's not been rehabilitated yet. Really? Did you honestly think that going to prison and allowing him to like make his own cups of tea is going to suddenly change the mass dewiring of this sort of satanic creature's brain? So no, I don't believe in taking a life, but I don't believe equally that prison should be some sort of gateway to normality. It's supposed to be punitive. It's supposed to be a retribution. And then for those people who can be rehabilitated, which this man can't, that's very clearly obvious, there needs to be a way of making these people able, fit and ready to reintegrate into society if they repent for what they have done and they are able to go back and live as normal contributing citizens. But this is a man he's not due to come out of prison until his 70s, if that. I mean, that's not going to happen at any point. So why on earth should he have a feathered existence where he's able to go and make hot beverages when he wants, or just leave his cell full stop? I mean, prison should be somewhere that people fear going to. They should not want that under any circumstances. It shouldn't be a case of, I'll just go do 6 months and then that will happen and this will happen, then I'll come back out and my mate's this. And no, people should be terrified of prison. They should have chills to their bone about the idea of going to prison. And we've had 2 incidents lately which proves that actually that is not the case. And I would rather we looked at that we looked at the sort of parameters of freedom that prison allows the most dangerous of convicts, and question that before we go down the route of taking lives. That's my own personal view. There'll be many people listening who just think the death penalty in extreme circumstances should be brought back. I grew up in Gloucester, which is famous, of course, for Fred and Rose West. And I didn't just grow up in Gloucester knowing that shadow hung over my city, but I knew people involved. And it's really hard to square a circle when you've got demons, subhuman entities like those 2. But I still maintain that taking a life doesn't sort of, chalk something up on a tally that makes it right. But prison shouldn't be easy. It's that simple.
But first, you know how often I talk about the need for free speech to be protected? Well, I've been increasingly thinking of the need for personal protection from snoopers, bad actors, and hackers online. And I'm delighted to tell you I have now found the fail-safe solution. But what's more, this VPN, or virtual private network to use the full term, is also a life change when it comes to providing you entertainment and information from anywhere in the world, wherever you are. Let me introduce you to Surfshark, an incredible and easy-to-use service that encrypts all your internet traffic, meaning your online activities stay safe so you can shop, you can stream, you can browse, you can conduct your banking online in complete privacy. But what's amazing is actually the benefits of Surfshark go way beyond keeping you safe online, because it allows you to access your favorite entertainment and streaming services like Hulu, iPlayer, HBO Max, Peacock, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, all of them within seconds, as if you're watching from another country. So if you're traveling for work or on holiday, you can also get all your favorite content from home, including sports. It's an insurance policy against creeping censorship in many countries too, like France, which has blocked Rumble for so many months. And by the way, a VPN can save you money too by allowing you to get the best deals from websites that change their prices depending on when you were buying from. There are other benefits too. Surfshark is able to be used on unlimited devices, meaning your entire household can stay safe with just one subscription. And with over 3,200 servers in over 100 countries, there is a world of choice at your fingertips. Plus, if this is your first time using a VPN, I promise you it's super easy. I use it every day, but there is 24/7 customer service if you do need it. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. And what's more, Surfshark is so confident that it is the best VPN in the world that you can give it a try for a full 30 days. And if you're not entirely satisfied, you will get your money back. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. But now back to the show. Yeah, I mean, a huge amount to pick up on that. I guess the first thing is this source from The Sun that revealed the news, saying he is clearly not rehabilitated at all and someone like him has nothing to lose, is absolutely spot on, because he's never going to be rehabilitated. But this is the problem. The fact that he doesn't have a whole life tariff means that in theory, the prison system has to try and rehabilitate this guy. So that's the first thing. He should never be allowed out. If you don't believe in the death penalty, I think most people would believe that there is no way that this guy should step foot outside prison ever again. When it comes to the death penalty, my personal view is the only concern is in regards to whether you can actually prove someone has committed the crimes. There have been some horrendous miscarriages of justice. So I think it has to be a case where there is absolute categorical evidence that the crime was committed. But in this case, there is that evidence. And I would obviously also believe that the families of the victims, so in this case, Elsie, BB, and Alice, should have some type of say as well. But the problem, I think, Alex, is that we're in a situation where our prisons are no longer safe for the people who work within them. And there is a real issue, again, which is not discussed in the mainstream media. It's considered one of those taboo topics. But most of our major prisons, including Belmarsh, Alex, are now run by these extreme Muslim gangs. And it's a massive issue. Clearly, Rudakubana is protected in some way because he is now a practicing Muslim behind bars. We know that at HMP Woodhill, the reason that Tommy Robinson is in solitary is because the belief is that the Muslim gangs would be able to kill him if he was in the general population. So while this doesn't necessarily directly relate to the Rudakubana case, it is so shocking, is it not, that we have allowed our prisons to get to a state and a stage where they are being run by a particular sectarian group.
Yeah, it's mental. This idea that prison is somewhere that, people can go and just continue normal life, but without being sort of, as part of society is crazy. I would like prisons to be bloody awful places. I'd like prisons, like I said, to strike fear into the heart of even the toughest of gang lords. And it's not just Muslim gangs. That's a huge problem. But it's also organized crime. The amount of big drug kingpins who are flying, spice and various other narcotics into prisons using drones. And then what happens when you say, well, okay, so how do they repay their debts inside prison? They use people in the outside world as collateral damage, family members and friends and all the rest of it. It's just a joke. Our prisons should be somewhere that essentially you're stuck in disgusting conditions that you shouldn't want to tolerate. And when it comes to the death penalty, there are some people out there who might believe, and especially if someone is a practicing Muslim, who doesn't really believe in the value of life on earth anyway, and thinks they're going to be greeted in the afterlife by 72 virgins, that actually the death penalty is an easy way out. I don't think prisoners, especially those like Axel Rudakubana should cost the taxpayer thousands of pounds. It's very easy. You just put them in some sort of oubliette, make sure that they're fed enough to not die, and then just let them fester, because that is what prison should be. It should be punitive. And what's happened, and again, it's due to things like membership of the ECHR, that the rights of prisoners and access to family life and access to this sort of freedom and being able to walk around the block and have exercise and have books and have all these sort of creature comforts, because it'd be against their human rights if they didn't have those creature comforts, has become entangled within the way that prisons are operated. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. If you go to most prisons outside of the Western world, they're not anywhere that anybody could tolerate for even a week. I'm not saying that when people have committed low-level crimes, fraud, casual burglary, people who can be redeemed, and I'm a huge believer in the redemptive power, should be used with inside prisons. But this idea that prisons can be like a home from home is just absolutely mad. I mean, that's just essentially putting people who are monsters under the same conditions as lockdown during COVID. I mean, there has to be some sort of delineation between this is life in the outside world and this is life when you have committed a felony that shocks and disgusts humanity to its core. And this is something that's gone horribly wrong. We need to look at it. Yes, it's going to upset all of the legal rights lawyers that are drifting around, who are taking these cases of prisoners and saying they deserve representation too. Aren't we a nice and cuddly system? Everyone gets to challenge the law. Well, do you know what? Iron bars should be iron bars. Cells should be cells. That is what prison is for. And if this horrible, monstrous thing, he's not even a human, if this thing had access to boiling water, what else has he got access to?
I know. Alex, just a quick word. What did you make of the fact that Tommy Robinson deleted Silenced from X last week, paving the way potentially for his early release from prison?
Well, I support him in doing that and what it might take in terms of making sure that he can come back to society, because he's no Axel Rudakubana, is he? I mean, he's it's ridiculous that he's in solitary confinement because he is at risk due to other inmates. It was a civil case. I don't think he should be under the conditions he's in at all. But also, we do know there have been other charges leveled against him, such as terrorism charges, because he wouldn't hand over his mobile phone at the behest of counter-terror police. But this is where you have a situation where, and Tommy Robinson is one case, but he's not the sole case. I want to constantly remind people of the woman who is serving 32 months in prison for a tweet that was up there, or Facebook post or something, for all of 2 hours before she deleted it. And she's never put a foot wrong in her life.
I know. Well, Lucy Connolly, by the way, there is the appeal hearing on Thursday at the Court of Appeal. I'm going to be there. The Free Speech Union will be there protesting, saying police our streets, not tweets, with big signs. And I hope and pray, Alex Phillips, that we get good news, because, of course, if they do overturn the decision, Lucy Connolly would be released immediately. But she's not the only one. There's Julie Sweeney as well, who's a grandmother and hasn't had the same type of mainstream media coverage. Well, is anyone fighting for her grandmother, who put up a Facebook post and is in prison for over 2 years? Absolutely nuts. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.